So it's been a while, and I don't really have a reason for my absence. I just haven't really had any ideas on what to talk about. So I've decided that I'm going to start a series where I just talk a bit about the stuff I've been playing, watching, or reading. I've timestamped everything, so you can just skip past the stuff you don't care about. The original Silent Hill 2 is one of my favourite games ever, and I recently played the remake and loved it. I do actually have a scrapped script for a video going over the remake and the original, and what I think they did better and worse at each other, and why the original is still the better experience in my opinion. I won't go as in depth in this as I did in the solo thing, in case I do make it, but I'll still talk a bit about both of them. The first thing I want to talk about is the atmosphere. I mentioned the atmosphere of the original in multiple of my past videos, but I'll point out a few main things. The original obviously has the low poly PS2 aesthetic that I love in horror. The town has this feeling of exploring a fading memory or a dream that you're starting to forget as you wake up. The voice acting in the cutscenes also leans into this. Kind of feeling awkward if that's the right word, but in a good way. The voice acting isn't the most polished, but it leans into the whole vibe of the game. The game looks dirty and grimy, with things like the textures of the walls in the buildings. The long hallways in places like the apartments and the hospital, matched with the low render distance, keeps the feeling of dread and uneasiness. Not being able to see what's in front of you, knowing that something could come out of you, but not knowing when. It's also used when you first see Pyramid Head. You walk down a hallway and you see some bars. Looking through them, you see a large figure shining red from the shadows, just standing there. He keeps you on edge as he just watches you. He's obviously a threat, but he's not doing anything to try and hurt us. He has a fat ass sword. If he wanted to, he could easily break down the bars and attack us, but no, he chooses to watch. The game is one of the greatest soundtracks in all of gaming as well, matched by Sonic Adventure 2, but you know, they're not exactly going for the same thing. The music adds to the dreamlike feel and the atmosphere of the game, and the moments where the game chooses to lose the music makes it even scarier. The bit in the roof of the hospital especially showing this. Being in complete silence, and then hearing good old Pyramid Head creeping up on you, with the scraping of his blade. Some moments I want to point out as high points in the game's atmosphere is the descent of that really long stairway, with how the sounds of the horns rise as if they're building up to something as you slowly make your way down, leaving your mind to imagine what's awaiting you down there, only for you to arrive at the bottom and be greeted with nothing.
Nothing?
Just an empty room. No threat, it was all in your head. The empty courtyard with nothing but a gallows, and that bit with the whispers. They both scared me when I first heard them, same in the remake. The long hallway where you hear Mary and James talking, and the scene where he watches the tape. When it ends and he just sits there in front of the static as the camera slowly pans around him from above. We're left there for a solid minute reflecting. In the remake they take a different approach to the after tape scene, with the camera being close to him this time instead of far away. I prefer the approach of the original though, with us looking down on him while the static of the TV plays. While yes, we feel sympathy for him, he's still a bad person. We play as James throughout the game and we're in his mind and we feel the emotions and regret he feels. But at the end of the day, he still killed his wife. The walk back through the hotel is phenomenal in both, the remake especially. Having to slowly break through the walls as you walk through a crumbling hotel, with Blank Fairy playing in the background. The perfect track for a scene like this. The song embodies the chaos James is feeling in his mind, just having to face the truth of his actions moments prior. He knew she was dead, and he knew he killed her, but he still came to Silent Hill. He was still running from the truth, living in the lie that she was out there, not wanting to face the truth. The tape was the nail in the coffin. The music blaring and the walls falling apart, it all really builds up and hits. So I prefer the after tape scene in the original, but I think I prefer the walk through the hotel after in the remake. Another one of these scenes I like more in the remake is when James pulls the rope and the gallows. I love the way he looks at the camera before pulling it. Another moment I want to highlight from the original is that skin room from the boss where you fight Angela's dad. I always feel so disgusting in it. The walls made of skin and those holes in the walls with pipes moving in and out of them. This boss is one of my favourite parts in the remake as well. It takes what was already a disturbing fight and makes it even more terrifying. It puts you in the shoes of Angela. You get chased through her childhood home, running from her dad just like she had to. The fight was terrifying as well in those moments where it randomly speed up and dash at you. Its design is disgusting also. It looks like two people on top of each other trapped under a sheet of skin. It just looks so helpless. The scene after you kill it and Angela starts to attack it and cry really makes you feel how much Angela hated him and how bad she was treated. All the monsters in the remake look phenomenal as well. They took the original's already disturbing designs and adapted them perfectly. They all look terrifying, and those leg monsters were menacing as hell. The bit in the prison when they're crawling on the walls, and how they hide around corners waiting to attack you. The remake has more of a scary atmosphere, while the original has more of an unsettling one, if you get what I mean. The camera being closer to James and behind his back makes it feel more claustrophobic at times, and the improved enemy UI makes for some pretty good unscripted jump scares. Similarly to the first game, it uses a lot of audio techniques to feel like something's constantly building up. It keeps you on edge because you know a scare's coming but you don't know when. It makes every corner turn stressful and every door opening scary, as you always feel like you're in danger. While the original always had me on edge and uncomfortable, the remake had me constantly terrified. The original has that moody, isolating atmosphere, and the remake has that oppressive, boots quaking atmosphere. Like on the roof of the hospital, in the original you hear Pyramid Head walk up to you, but in the remake you open a door and he's just there. Both approaches work well in their own right. The games are just going for different things. I've also not specifically said this yet, but the remake is sexy as hell. The environment is beautifully decorated and the town genuinely feels like a real place it was once lived in. This goes for both games, but I love looking at the writing on the walls. How over the game they slowly hint at the truth of what James did. My favourite personally is the, if you really want to see Mary you should just die, but you might be heading a different place than Mary, James. The hotel is my favourite part in both games, and in the remake it's absolutely stunning. There's only so many ways I can say this game looks good, so just know that this game does look amazing. The otherworld sections were also really cool. The remake adds some more content than the original. The first game took me around 9 hours to beat, and the remake took about 13. And I think all of the added content was great. I do think that the prison dragged a little bit, as well as the bit after with the cube that you move around. However, it is saved by the last section of the cube bit where you go through the hallway that turns red, and you go into like the red rooms. The bit at the end where you use Pyramid Head's sword to get rid of the red things was also really cool. However, the key difference between the original and the remake is the gameplay. The original was clunky in a good way with how it keeps you feeling weak and scared, with how even the controls feel like they're against you. So with the remake going for an approach similar to what Capcom did with the Resident Evil remakes, it would have been very easy to mess up. But I think Bloober Team delivered. James is still no Leon. The combat still keeps the feeling of the original with James being overpowered by these monsters, but still keeping James fun to control if that makes sense. You feel weak, but you have enough control to keep the game fun and not feel like it's unfair. The voice acting was also great for everyone, however I do think Mary and Maria were better in the original. I like the scenes where James would get angry at people as well, showing how the town of Silent Hill is affecting him. I will get into it more in the solo video that I've decided now that I actually am going to make. I also think that the in-water ending was better in the original. I do like the added stillness ending in the remake though. So yeah, stay tuned for that solo video. I already have it right, so I don't need to voice and edit and all that stuff. Now, I haven't really been into anime for like 2 years now. I used to love it, but over time I kind of just fell off of it because I couldn't really find any series I was into. The only series I really kept up with was Tokyo Revengers, and I still do love that. But I've recently found the type of anime I do like. I used to just watch the generic Shonen Jump superpower stuff, but they just don't really appeal to me much anymore. But recently I have found the type that I like. This and the show I'm going to mention in the next section are phenomenal, and I love them both so much. I'm trying to think of where to start with my love for this series. The intro alone perfectly shows the amount of style and swag this series carries. I love the aesthetic of it and all the locations they visit. The concept alone is just super cool. Bounty hunters in space. I loved all the characters and how they interacted with each other. I will admit that I didn't like Ed at first, but she did grow on me. The fight scenes were all amazing and the music created such a vibe that I love. But while from the outside it may just seem like some fun action anime, it really does have some meaningful themes of finding the place you belong and moving on from the past. One scene that I think is probably my favourite from Bebop is this. So earlier on in the show, after the full crew gets formed and everyone is on the Bebop, Spike says this to Jet.
You know that there are 3 things that I particularly hate.
Really?
Kids, animals, and women with attitudes.
However, over the show, Spike starts to care more about these characters, and his growth as a character is shown when Ed, Ayn, and Faye all leave to go to the place they believe they belong. Just before this, Ed gives Spike this pinwheel, and we see that Spike has put it up on the Bebop after realising what had happened. Him and Jet go back to the main room to eat. There's 4 plates full of eggs, 1 for each of the group. They both sit down and they start eating theirs. They speed up and start eating from the other plates as well, clearly not wanting to admit that they're sad that the 3 left, but they both miss them. Remember, the 3 things that Spike said he hated, he has learned to care about. Spike is also a great example of the other theme I said earlier, about being unable to move on from the past. So before Spike joined Bebop, he was in a crime syndicate with these 2 main people, Vicious and Julia, and Spike fell in love with Julia. Spike made a plan to leave the syndicate and fake their death so they can live together in peace. Obviously this didn't end well, with Vicious finding out and giving Julia a dilemma. She either kills Spike when she meets with him to escape, or he kills them both. She decides that instead of doing either of these, she's going to run away, and she's been on the run from the syndicate ever since. Spike, on the other hand, went to the graveyard where they were going to meet and didn't see her, causing him to fake his death solo, and he hasn't seen her since. Near the end of the show, Faker's back to Bebop after leaving, because she met Julia, and Julia told her to tell Spike to meet her where they were supposed to all that time ago. Before Spike leaves after hearing what Faye says, he tells her something. After an accident, one of his eyes got replaced with a fake. Ever since then, one sees the present and the other stuck in the past, replaying the time Spike spent with Julia, and causes Spike to constantly think of the future where they both escaped. He finds her, and while running away from the syndicate, she gets shot and dies. This causes Spike to return to Bebop and decides that in order to move on, he needs to kill Vicious. Him and Vicious meet and they fight. In the end, they both die. Spike gets to kill Vicious, but at the cost of his own life. This series started out as a fun bounty hunting adventure, but it ended up as a really impactful series for me, about regret, belonging, and moving on.
Bang.
Like I said in the last section, there were 2 anime I watched and loved, Cowboy Bebop and Black Lagoon, and I have so much love for this series. The characters are all amazing, the locations they visit are amazing, the stuff they get up to is amazing, the way they interact is amazing and feel real. The show is actually funny. There's not many anime I've watched that are actually funny. The first episode starts off so strong as well, with this guy named Rockero getting kidnapped by these 3 people who go by the Lagoon Company, a group of pirates that take on the jobs they can to get paid. They're on a job to get this disc from the corporation he works at, so they take him as hostage with it. However, while he's with them, he feels more free than he ever had in his previous day-to-day office job life. While he's with them, they don't treat him like how you'd expect people to treat a hostage. Dutch especially is pretty transparent with telling him why they've taken him hostage, and even invites him out for drinks, where he bonds with the Lagoon Company. Benny, who mainly works behind the scenes for them instead of fighting like the other 2. Dutch, the guy I mentioned previously who's also the leader of the company. And Revy, a woman who throughout her life has had to shoot guns and is the main fighter for the Lagoon. While being a hostage, he gets a call from his boss, saying that he's now been declared dead by the company and there's been a team sent to kill both him and his kidnappers. While being chased by the team, he helps Lagoon to defeat them, and after they get their mission done, and he's able to go back to Japan and get his job back, he says no. He decides to join Lagoon and change his name to Rock, the name that Dutch referred to him as when he was a hostage. The way his job and the Lagoon treated him were completely different. The place he spent so much time working at brushed him off instantly and named him dead, while Dutch takes him in and is kind to him. After his name change, his life would never be the same again. That's the premise. I won't say any of the actual story beats, but I'll just go over what I like for the rest of this part. So at first, Dutch and Benny are pretty welcoming to Rock, but Revy isn't the biggest fan of him being there, and they clash a lot, but that just makes it better when they do eventually grow closer near the end. I like how at one point she says that if Rock was ever stupid enough to get himself kidnapped, she wouldn't come rescue him. But when he gets kidnapped in the jungle, she lies to the people she's with, saying that Rock had the documents, even though she did just so they'd help her get him back.
Listen up, you fucking leprechaun. You're gonna wait here until you get our signal. If you run away, I'll hunt you down and castrate you.
My, she said good things. I agree very much.
Fucking bollocks!
Anyway, just go easy on the weed, okay? I don't need you all fucked up when we have to make a run for it.
Her and Rock come from completely opposite backgrounds. Rock obviously having a well-paying job in Tokyo, while Revy always had to fend for herself and fight. It's clear that some part of Rock envies Revy's freedom and admires her, with how she lives by her own rules and does what she wants, but he also doesn't want to be the same as her. Throughout the entire series, Rock tries to avert people from doing bad things and killing. In the Yakuza arc, Yukio says that Rock lives in the twilight, with how he both wants to stay in his old comfortable Tokyo life, but he also doesn't want to leave his current life with the Lagoon. It gives him a perspective that all the other characters don't, and it creates some really interesting scenes. In the end, he decides to stay with Lagoon though, saying that being with Lagoon has helped him see through the facade of his old life. I love all the side characters as well. Edda was fun every time she appeared.
Sis, I'm here to help you!
That's
The voice acting in the dub was great as well, same in Cowboy Bebop. All the jokes get delivered well, but the actors also work well in the more serious scenes, like the one where Rock and Revy have an argument and she almost shoots him. The series has an overall comedic tone, but it can get serious when it needs to. So in conclusion, my only problem is that we needed to see more of Benny. He's such a cool guy. I do need to read the manga now, but since I'm a broke-ass kid, I won't be able to do that for a while. There are only a few volumes that haven't been adapted, but I'll probably just do a full series read instead of just the volumes that weren't adapted. I'm pretty sure it doesn't have an ending in the manga either, I think it's still on hiatus. For my whole life, I've been a Sonic fan, and something I've always loved about the series is all the characters. And something I've hated is that in a lot of the new games, they hardly get used. So I decided to pick up the IDW comics, as they use pretty much all the main characters, and I've loved them so far. I've read volumes 1 to 4 in the Tangle and Whisper miniseries. So you may be wondering, if you love them so much, why haven't you read Fast 4? And my answer to that is I can't, because Amazon is taking stupidly long to deliver them. Well, I've only got to wait like a week, but it's still kind of annoying. One more thing I'm a moan about before I get to glazing is that the volumes are different heights. But onto the actual content of the comics. What I've read so far covers the first arc and the start of the Metal Virus arc, and its peak so far. The first arc is about Neo Metal Sonic, and he's actually so cool in this. And the next is about the Metal Virus, which seems pretty interesting so far. Volume 4 also ends in that the Chaotix are going to be doing some investigating or something like that, which is great because I love these guys. Okay, well, not so much Charmy, but Vector and SB are some of my favourites in the series. They're such a good duo. I played the Murderer Sonic the Hedgehog recently as well, and they just work so well together. I love how Vector sticks up for him when he's being interrogated. Vector's a real one, and SBO is also really cool, with how they both contrast each other. I love how we get to see more of these guys and other characters in the comics. I think everyone but Shadow is amazing in them, which just kind of suck because Shadow is one of my favourite characters. But I think it's because of the mandates that Sega have around him. Like how Shadow can't have friends and that Team Dark doesn't exist, which is so unbelievably stupid. There's this one panel that annoys me so much. I've not reached it yet, but I saw it online. Basically, Rouge pulls up and is like, "Yo, Shadow, Omega needs your help, we need to repair him," or something like that. And Shadow just says not interested. Like, Shadow would not say that. And Shadow having no friends is silly as well. Because in 06, Rouge literally says that if the world turns against him, she'll always be by his side. These games here were the peak of his character. However, he has been better recently in Shadow Generations. So hopefully they might change the mandates around him. I'm not too sure if they do still exist, but I know earlier on in the comics he's a bit annoying. So yeah, hopefully they can just like give him a reason and make him likable like he used to be. Anyway, back to the good stuff. I love the new characters. Tangle and Whisper are phenomenal, and I can easily see Whisper becoming one of my favourite characters in the franchise as a whole. Rough and Tumble are also pretty fun, and that duck guy is also cool. I like his power with how he can open portals. I also really enjoyed the story on the first arc, with how it focused on Metal Sonic as a villain, instead of Eggman. They also took the Resistance HQ from Forces and actually made it into something interesting, with how the series takes place in a post-Eggman war world. Back to what I said earlier about how I think all the characters are great, they all genuinely feel how I think they should. We finally get to see more Silver, who I do see get some hate from people in the comics, but I like him in them. He is a little bit goofy at times, but I do kind of like that. Obviously he's going to be less serious than he was in 06, but he's had more time to get to know the characters now. Like, he's more friends with them, so obviously he's going to be more comfortable around them. And I like seeing him just chill in the present instead of like always being focused on saving his future. Like, obviously he's still so focused on saving his future, but that's not like his only goal. He's still there to like protect his friends and stuff. And obviously because he is some guy from the future where he's the only one there, he's obviously going to lack some social skills. Similarly to Knuckles, but Silver is more extroverted while Knuckles is more introverted. I like the part in the annual where he starts a garden as well. It reminds me of in 06 where he was amazed at how beautiful the world was. So far I bought up to volume 11 and have the Tangle and Whisper, Bad Guys and Imposter Syndrome miniseries. So I've just got to wait for Amazon to deliver the rest so I can read them. My closing thoughts on this section is that comics are just a vibe and you need to check them out if you're a Sonic fan. And the most recent arc, which I'm still like far away, and it doesn't get an actual volume till the 22nd of April, but that's fine anyway, I can just read the issues. It's the Phantom Riders arc. It actually seems so cool, because I love Sonic Riders. That's like easily top 5 Sonic games. I'll fight anyone on that take. And I do have 1 through 11 apart from volume 5, so I can't read on. But I had a little peek in volume 7, and I saw the Babylon Rogues, and I love them guys so much. So I'm well excited to read them. So that's what I played, watched, and read recently. If you have any game recommendations for videos or just other video ideas, they'd be appreciated, as I don't really have many ideas. That's kind of why I took that. more fat hiatus, I guess. Thanks for watching and subscribe if you enjoyed. Goodbye for now.